NFC South, I have the Carolina Panthers up first. And my question is like, basically, are they like for sure on Teddy Bridgewater? Because, they signed him to a 3-year, $60 million contract. And that seems pretty like sure to me. Not like completely sure. It's not an expensive QB contract by any means, but it's not a cheap one. And it's 3 years. So they're planning, I assume, planning on keeping him for a good bit. But the team, honestly, that roster is not very good. So I'm just kind of confused why they made this move and stuff. And I know Matt Rule is hoping he's doing well with Joe Brady and stuff, but I'm not a believer, and it just seems like a weird position to put them in. And could they end up with that opportunity where Teddy Bridgewater ends up like possibly winning too many games where they don't get a chance at like Lawrence or something? Like, I would take Trevor Lawrence, but then they signed Teddy Bridgewater. So I've just been confused since that move.
Yeah, see, my thought on the matter is this, is that the Panthers are trying to be pragmatic about how this team is going to come back to relevancy. I kind of look at Teddy Bridgewater as sort of a several-year stopgap between quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. It's really weird for an NFL team to take such a patient approach, but I think that's what they're going with, especially with the signing of Matt Rule, who has shown that he can revive programs. Now, the difference between reviving a college program and reviving an NFL one is different. I honestly think that the college one's harder, but regardless, they're still different beasts, though, and it's going to take a while. They just spent an entire draft where they drafted only defensive players. Mm-hmm. I think that they're in for the long haul right now. I think they're accepting the fact that they're not going to be good this year, probably won't be good next year, and then the year after that, hopefully, then they start picking up some steam. And if Teddy Bridgewater at that point in time has proven that he's a guy that can win big games, more like, then you keep on with him. But if not, then you can find another answer. Maybe you've been developing another answer during this time. My question is, where is it? Here we are. What does Matt Rule make of the defense? Because it is in shambles of what it used to be, especially with the loss of Luke Kuechly over the offseason. But like I mentioned earlier, they drafted only defensive players. So we're going to see a lot of new faces out there, and Matt Rule has been very good at developing defenses. So I'm just kind of curious to see how that side looks. Christian McCaffrey is going to have another monster year, especially with Teddy Bridgewater as his quarterback. And they're not going to win a lot of games. So you got to kind of look for the silver lining about what is there to watch, what is there to be excited about with the Panthers. And for me, it's just to see some of the development. Kind of like the Jaguars, except a little more positively, because I don't have faith in the Jaguars actually growing and being good.
Yeah, at least there's some, I guess, more higher proof that the Panthers have a chance of being good. And then Rule is, at least we know in college, is a good coach. So maybe he'll be able to translate. I know sometimes that's difficult to translate college coaches to NFL coaches. But one question, do you think that it was worth taking one more flyer on Cam Newton, one more year, or do you think it was the right decision to move on?
I don't know. I think that I guess that's kind of a Matt Rule discretion, because Cam Newton did have injury problems throughout these past few years. Did you want to deal with that, or would you rather just have a steady guy like Bridgewater in there who you know what you're going to get out of him? You're not going to get someone who's amazing, but at least you can get consistency on a team that has changed drastically recently. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I guess Cam Newton is, wherever Cam Newton goes, you want to win games with Cam Newton. Yeah. That's kind of how I feel. He's the kind of guy who wants to play in competitive games, wants to play tough, wants to put it all out there. And not saying Teddy Bridgewater is not like that. I just think Teddy Bridgewater is just more of a safe player that, although he's not going to make the fantastic plays, he's also not going to make the kind of mistakes Cam Newton makes.
I completely agree. So the Falcons, and they're a team that had a pretty good hangover from the Super Bowl. And to me, does last year's finish to the season matter? They started 1-7, finished 6-2, and they won their last 4 games. And it seemed like there's stories coming out that the locker room was rallying around Dan Quinn and stuff. But it's like, does that ending matter? I mean, there's a lot of people high on the Falcons this year. I've seen a lot of people high that their offense can bounce back. I know Matt Ryan, I believe, compared it to one of the older rosters, I think it's one of the most talented rosters he's been on. I mean, they signed Todd Gurley, but it's like, does that momentum carry over? Actually, is my question. And do we expect a bounce back year?
Well, I think one of the big things with the Falcons last year was that, especially early on, they got hit by a lot of injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But my question is, how much impact does a healthy year have? Because even with that, they had a lot of talent last year, and they fell flat out of the gate to start.
Mm-hmm.
Like on their face, splat into the mud. They looked awful, completely uninspiring. But they did turn it around. Can they carry that momentum into this season? It's a good question, especially given the fact that this offseason has been such a momentum killer of an offseason.
Yeah.
So I worry that this Falcons team is going to be what they continue to be year after year outside of that Super Bowl, that they're just wasted potential. And it's always been confounding to me that they don't win more games than they do, except for that year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much of that falls on Dan Quinn or on his coaching staff. They've been kind of a confusing team, to say the least. But last year, at least, you could kind of draw the line between injuries and a little bit more health and just being able to pick up momentum after getting some wins. I'll be curious to see, because I feel like every year with the Falcons is sort of a flip of a coin about what you're going to get. And I mean, I think they're due for a heads and have a good season, but you never know. It could be another tails year.
Yeah, I'm pro on them this year. It does seem like they flip and flop, like you're saying, and I hope they ended up, spinning a tails this year for us. I picked Matt Ryan in fantasy, so I'm cheering for him.
That's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, so
even if they're bad.
Yeah, but the next team up is the Saints, and I feel like this has been talking about safe bets. It's been a safe bet over the past couple of years of them expecting them to be good. But my question is, how does the Breeze Peyton legacy end? Because I'm assuming it's pretty close to done. Could be done this year, to be honest with you. I think Breeze is coming towards his end of his career. And they've got one Super Bowl. They have plenty of records together. They gained the most yards since 2006 together in the NFL. And the NFL converted the highest percentage of thirds down since they've been together. There's more stats, plenty of stats to prove how great they are together. But it's like, can they win it all? They've been trying to win it all, feels like, for the past 3 years, and they've just ended up having some bad luck in the postseason. And it's a question to me, it's just, how is this going to end? How is their legacy going to end together?
Yeah, I know. It's so weird to me, because when I look at the Saints roster, they look just as dominant, just as good, just as talented as ever. And yet I can't hedge my bets on them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've said Saints to the Super Bowl the past 3 years, and each year it gets more and more disappointing, because you had the Minneapolis Miracle, which, okay, I was okay with that. That was fantastic. Then you had the Rams game, which, I was left bitter because I thought they should have won, but they could have won even with that pass interference call not being made. And then last season was just kind of, it was a dud for me. Watching the entire game, I thought the Vikings are just better. They are playing better. They are a better team right now, and they rightfully won the game. I just don't know how much I can bet on them. My question, kind of along those lines, is TikTok. When does time catch up to Drew Brees? Because I think it's coming up. Like you said, the Peyton Brees era is coming to an end. Is it going to be ugly? Because although Peyton Manning ended up on the top when he retired, we all know it wasn't a pretty glorious ride.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Brees could pull off what Manning did, because Brees doesn't have a legendary Broncos defense at his disposal. The Saints defense is good, but they're no Broncos, no fly zone. And I don't know. I just worry this is the year that it falls apart for Drew Brees, which is a shame given how good this team is. But maybe the year I finally decide to not pick them as my Super Bowl team, they'll go and get it. Like, they have the talent. They have everything they need. They just have to go and do it.
Yeah, I mean, they've been high every year, and they improved a little bit this offseason, but not a ton. And it seems like they keep on adding like good veteran players every year, but they're just not being able to find the luck in the postseason, to be honest with you. And we have that final team in the NFC South as the Buccaneers. And question's just, does Tom Brady still have it? It's a pretty simple question. It's on him this year. I know Bruce Arians hopefully coaches them well. And, the defense needs to play well again like they did last year. But to me, the spotlight's on Tom Brady this
Oh
year.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
everyone's going to be looking at him, seeing what he's going to do. And I think it'll be interesting. He's got good weapons, but does it matter? I don't know, because I don't believe he can throw the deep ball very well anymore. So, I mean, I think his years are pretty much over, and will Arians be able to scheme a good offense for him? We'll have to find out, basically.
I'll take your question and make it a little more specific for my question, because it would be remiss of me to not acknowledge Tom Brady in the question for the Buccaneers. But my question is, can Brady handle shootouts? Because I think Tom Brady can play Tom Brady's game just fine still, especially with Chris Godwin. See, Mike Evans is great, but Chris Godwin is going to eat it this season with Tom Brady at the helm. Chris Godwin is, at this point in his career, better than Julian Edelman is right now. I would have to compare and contrast as far as if you want to compare primes, but Chris Godwin is a fantastic receiver that Tom Brady is going to love having. But the problem is that the Buccaneers front seven is good, but that secondary is incredibly suspect, and they're going to be allowing a lot of points. You watch the Buccaneers last season. Jameis Winston went off like he did in chaotic fashion because he always had to score points. They always needed to score. And can Brady do that? Can Brady continue to air the ball out? Can he throw for 350 yards? Can he score on 3 straight drives? I have my doubts. But maybe he proves wrong. Maybe he proves me wrong. Maybe the lack of talent in New England at the receiver position for the past few years has really just done him an injustice. But that's the question, I think, is can Brady handle the shootout games? Because I think he still can play as sort of his super manager as he does. Like, I don't want to call him a game manager because he's better than a game manager, but he always has control over the game. But when the game is just spiraling in every direction and points are going on the board all the time, can he come out on top?
I think that's a great question, because the games, I feel like, leaning towards the offense. So there's going to be more shootouts every year. It seems like there's more shootouts, and can Brady still hang in with that type of game?